We are going to start with a half cup of warm water. It's about 110 roughly degrees, and we're going to add active dry yeast to it, 2 1/4 teaspoons. This is a 1 teaspoon and a fourth. And to give the yeast something to feed to, we're going to add about a teaspoon of sugar. The yeast needs the sugar in order to react, to get the best reaction from it. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to stick it in the microwave just in a warm, draft-free place for 5 minutes. I don't know what happened to my instructions, so I'm going to have to look it up. So I'm just going to go ahead and move over to the kitchen mixer because I know for a fact that works. We'll try this again. Yeah, maybe we'll make some donuts because I got to cut the stuff in the donuts or bagels. I don't know. We'll find something to make. We'll use this. I'll just move over to the kitchen mixer though. Or maybe I should bring it over here because the lighting is so bad in here. I'll bring it over here. Ugh. Hello, welcome to Holly Waker's Homestead. My name is Stephanie and today I am craving croissants. So I have my handy croissant recipe that I have been using for quite some time. You can see the stains. I've used this a lot. There's no name for who it's by. I did not write that down. The best I could do is type up my own version of it because I do change the recipe in here. So I guess that's what I'll do. I'll just type up the recipe that I use for the croissants. So I attempted to start this recipe in my new food processor, but I could not figure out how to get it to work, which makes me feel kind of stupid, but we'll deal with it later. KitchenAid mixer has never let me down, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I have the yeast mixture already in the microwave, so that was the first step. This is very good, very foamy, exactly what you want from your yeast mixture. So this is a half cup of warm water. It's like 100 degrees or something, 110, something like that. Yes. I get started on this. That's what you want from your yeast mixture. That was just my point. I am going to add 3 1/2 cups of bread flour into the mixing bowl. You can use all-purpose flour if that's all that you have. I like using the bread flour for croissants because they are more soft. They're not so dense. They're more fluffy. I have a little half line in here that tells me it's a half cup. So 3 1/2 cups of bread flour. So 3 1/2 cups of bread flour. 2 teaspoons of salt. Here's my teaspoon. 1, 2. 1/3 cup of granulated sugar. So I'm just going to give this a whisk before I put the yeast in it because yeast reacts negatively with salt if added just right on top of it. Using my liquid measuring cup, whatever, 1 cup of milk. Okay, now this is really cold and the dough has to proof. So I'm going to put that in the microwave for about 45 seconds, which will make it about room temperature. Okay, this is right around room temperature, not too hot, also not cold anymore. So I'm going to add the milk, add the yeast mixture, add my bread hook, and mix. Okay, so I should have done this with the flour. I didn't write it down, and I know this every time. I add 1 teaspoon of baking powder into my dough because it just allows it to get a little bit more fluffy. This is now going to start kneading for the next 8 minutes. Once it all comes together as a ball like it's doing, I set my timer for 8 minutes and it's going to knead for 8 minutes. It is not too sticky, right where it should be. It said it's not too sticky, and look at it sticking. Okay. Dang it. Okay, this is just a little bit of flour. Just giving it a little hand knead because I added a little extra flour because it was super sticky. I have a large bowl here that I sprayed with oil. Just pop the dough in the bowl, roll it around. I preheated the oven to 175 degrees. I turned it off. The dough is now going to proof in the oven for 30 minutes, setting my timer now. And we're going to get started on our butter square. I am using Blue Bonnet butter sticks. I'm going to take 3 of them, mix it with 2 tablespoons of flour, and beat it until smooth and creamy. And I'm just cutting these into tablespoon-ish sections. That's relatively creamy enough. Now I'm going to take the butter and put it here. I'm just going to now spread this out the best that I am able. Now this butter square is where the flaky butteriness is going to come into the croissant. So I'm just trying to make this as even of a layer as possible. This is now going to go in the fridge for the next 30 to 45 minutes as the bread is proofing. Really 20 minutes. You know what? It took a while. I'm going to stick this in the freezer. You want this to be really cold whenever you start mixing it into the bread. We'll be back in about 25 minutes and roll out the bread and get it all croissanty. The waiting part is what takes the longest. I just pulled this out of the oven. It was in the oven rising for 50 minutes. It is now doubled in size. I'm going to turn it onto here and roll it into a rectangle. That might have been a bit much there. I am dusting the surface with flour. That seemed to be like a lot more than a dust. Okay, yep, messed it up. Okay. I now have this rolled out best as I could without trying to get it in this crease here. Don't want it in there. Okay. Rolled out into a rectangle. Now here's our butter. And this is why we use the saran wrap, so that we could very easily unwrap it. Now we take the dough and close it in on the butter. I'm going to pinch the seams closed, all the sides. Okay, so our butter is on the inside. We're going to place it just right back on the cookie sheet. Cover it back over. This is going to go in the fridge for an hour. Now when it comes to making your croissant dough, it needs to stay really cold after the proofing process. So I'm going to end up turning and folding and rolling it out 3 or 4 times. And for each interval, it's going to be in the fridge for about 45 minutes to an hour. The first one's an hour because the dough itself is warm. So the butter is going to start slightly melting into it. Putting it in the fridge is going to cool it off. You want your dough to stay as cold as possible until you're ready to bake it. When I am working with dough, after cleaning up my mess, knowing that I'm going to be using the surface again for more dough, I spray it with water and soap. This is a soap water mixture. I don't want to put any chemicals down here just in case it were to get into the dough. Now this is not the prettiest rectangle in the world, but it'll do. Now these aren't the biggest or prettiest. This one's pretty, this one's pretty, this one's pretty, this one's pretty, but the rest are not. 4 pretty ones, but at least I'm gonna get croissants. I am now putting this in the oven. The croissants are in the oven. I have a proof setting on my oven, so I proofed it, which is at 90 degrees. If you don't have the proof setting, you can preheat your oven to 175. Usually that's as low as they'll typically go. And turn it off once it reaches that point. Let it cool down a bit, and then put your bread into proof. They're going to be in there for about 60 minutes or until they are doubled in size. Next time I make croissants, I will definitely cut them larger and maybe even divide the dough up, because it was really thick and really hard to roll through. So I feel like I could have made that easier on myself, but you know, where's the fun in that? Oh, the butter melted. Well, those look sad. Well, they didn't turn out that great, but it's still food to eat, so I'm gonna eat it.